Hey everyone, LittleMoeGaming here. Happy Friday. Hope everyone's been having a great week. We're getting into the weekend here. I am at lunch right now, recording at lunch, like the title of this series refers to. Usually I record on my way home or after work, but today I am actually at lunch. Um, just ate a delicious sandwich made by my wife, so thank you for that, Maha. I appreciate that. Um, it's a great day, beautiful day. Sun is out, sky is blue, mountains are looking pristine in the distance. I'm working at a different location than my normal branch that I work at, helping them out today. So I have a little bit of a different scenery right now. So I like to, you know, mention what I'm seeing. But that being said, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. I don't have that much time left on my lunch break, and I'm also I am working on my Nintendo Switch retrospective video, which I did record and edit. I just need to put together some gameplay footage, which is a little more difficult on Nintendo Switch because I can only record 30 seconds of gameplay at a time. I don't really have like a way to record it off my TV. I will probably invest in something that will allow me to record off my TV, but that also requires like a computer and all that. And it's just like, I mean, I can record 30 seconds of gameplay on my Switch, upload it to my smartphone, and then just use it that way. It's pretty quick. It's pretty easy. It just takes time. So, I have been mentioning that video for a while, but I am working on that video. But I do, of course, want to upload an episode of LittleMoeGaming at lunch just to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 and kind of continue on with my thoughts on that. Yes, we are talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 again this week. And I'm also going to be kind of talking about gaming in general and something that I've been realizing about gaming since the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced. So, in my last video, when I talked about my first thoughts on the Direct and what they talked about with the Switch, one of the big focuses I had was on the pricing of the console and the games. And I did already mention for the Nintendo Switch to be priced at $450, that wasn't a huge surprise to me. It is pricey, yes, for a Nintendo Switch, considering that the original Switch was $300 when it came out, and the OLED Switch went up to $350. I expected the Nintendo Switch 2 to push $400, but $450 is not that far off. So, in all honesty, that price point is not, that shocking, and it's not really, to me, it's not a huge barrier of entry to the console. Like, if you are a gamer and you want to buy the Nintendo Switch, $450 is not that bad, considering, how prices have just been going up. Now, I'm not saying that it's cheap, and for that reason, I probably won't be pre-ordering it because, it's still like a damn near $500 console. But that being said, what has me a little more concerned, and a lot of people, is that Nintendo announced that they were going to be putting a pause on pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch here in the United States. I think they also put a pause on Canada, if I'm not mistaken. But that's because of the tariffs that have been being announced by the Trump administration and all that. It's concerning because it makes me think, I don't think Nintendo is gonna price this thing less than $550, maybe $600, because if they want to turn a profit on it. And I've been watching a lot of videos, a lot of differing opinions on what it's going to take for Nintendo to actually profit from this console. Companies have sold consoles at a loss before. Sony did that, I think, with the PS3, if I'm not mistaken, and even with the PS4 originally. But I don't think Nintendo is going to be willing to do that. So if they do decide to keep it at $450, that would be great. even though it is still expensive for the Switch, but it's not that far off of what everyone was expecting. 450, that's reasonable. But if they do increase the price to 600 or 550, that's going to make the barrier of entry to the Switch ecosystem, the Nintendo Switch 2 ecosystem, so much higher and more difficult to get into for a lot of people. And it's funny because Nintendo actually came out, Doug Bowser, who I think is like president of Nintendo America or something like that. He came out and said, funny enough that his name is Bowser, by the way, but he came out and said that we are aware, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that we are aware a lot of people probably won't be able to afford the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's why we're keeping the Nintendo Switch and Switch Lite and Switch OLED. We're still keeping it, like, I guess, relevant going forward because, basically saying, like, if you can't afford the Switch 2, just get the old Switch, and you'd still be able to play a lot of games and maybe some new games, which, I mean, yeah, obviously, that's like, duh. Like, if I can't afford to get a Switch, then I could go buy the old Switch. But it's like the old Switch is already a really old console. If I'm not mistaken, it's on par with the PS3 and the Xbox 360 in terms of like what it can do. And yeah, there's a huge library of games. I mean, you could buy a Nintendo Switch, like an original Nintendo Switch, and you will have enough games to play on that console to last you a lifetime. Like, there's a lot to play on there. But I don't think there's anybody who really does that. Like, no one just buys one console and says, I'm just gonna buy every single game that exists on this console and play that for the rest of my life. Like, people buy new consoles for new experiences and new technologies and new games that come out that take advantage of the new hardware. So it's a little disappointing that, the Switch 2 is going to be so expensive, because at $450, again, that wasn't too bad. That was reasonable, but now there's no telling if it's going to stay the same or if they're going to bring it up to almost $600. And then I want to also talk about the pricing of the games, which I did talk about in my last video as being, one of the scarier parts of the situation. But I will admit there was a lot of misinformation that came out, and some things have been clarified. And whether or not, these clarifications are good or bad, again, that depends on how you look at it and what your opinions are. Basically, everybody was raging when the Direct came out because the reports were that games were going to cost $80. And it was like, digital games are going to be $80, physical games are going to be $90. And so everybody thought like, oh, wow, now video games are going to cost $80, $90 and all that kind of stuff. And Nintendo came out and they actually made a statement saying that the reason Mario Kart World is $80 is because they feel that there is enough content there to justify it, which I guess is like what they have to say, right? But at the end of the day, it's probably because they're like, hey, everybody wants to play Mario Kart. Even if we price it at $80, people are going to buy it. And it's Mario Kart. It's the launch game for the Switch. It's the biggest Nintendo IP, arguably, right? Like one of the biggest ones. We can price it at $80 and it'll sell gangbusters. And that's what they're doing now with Mario Kart. But there's going to be a lot of games that are going to be priced at $70. Donkey Kong Bonanza, Cyberpunk, which is going to be $70 as well when it comes out. So I guess the misconception was that every single game is going to be $80, but they're actually doing variable pricing, meaning that some games will release at $70, some will release at $80, some will release at $60, and I'm sure there's going to be some that will release at anywhere from $30 to $50. So, I mean, that's good to know because, yes, it's nice to know that there will be games that will cost less than $80, less than $70. But I guess we can expect that AAA titles, anything big from Nintendo, like, for example, the next big Zelda game that they make, if they make a new F-Zero game, which would be amazing, I would love that, or if they made like a new Star Fox game, right? Anything AAA like that, like big from Nintendo, is going to be minimum $70, and maybe even $80. And then third-party releases will probably be anywhere from $60 to $70. I mean, look, at the end of the day, video games are a luxury item. And this is something that I've been thinking about for the past week. Video games are a luxury item. And it is frustrating when you go into the store and you see a game that you really want to play and it's $70. And the idea that you have to spend $70 to play this game, it's a lot of money. I mean, even 70. It's funny when people say, like, oh, well, Mario Kart World is $80, but Donkey Kong is 70, when it's like, well, dude, $70 is a lot too. And I guess now that we have games that are going to be $80, $60, $70 games are going to look really, really nice and discounted now. But it's not discounted because that's literally the normal price. Like, that is what these games are priced at normally anyways now. They're already at those high price points, but now that we have games that are going to be higher, like at $80 or $90, when we see a game for 70, we're going to think, oh, this is a blessing, you know. Like, it's a lot cheaper. But the truth is, ever since the PS5 came out, I have done everything I can to get the games that I want to get at way below $70. And it's definitely possible. A game will release for $70, and then 1 or 2 months later it'll go on sale for $60, $50, $55. I would argue you can find any game you want cheaper than the MSRP price. You just gotta look for it. And I think the same thing will be said with Nintendo Switch 2 games, is that even if they release at $80, there will be a way to get them cheaper. It's just a matter of being patient, because yes, Nintendo games hold their value. They don't get cheaper quick. They stay priced high, but eventually those prices do go down a little bit, you know. And honestly, for a high quality Nintendo game, you know, something like Mario Kart World, something like Donkey Kong Bonanza, if I could get my hands on it for $55, even 60, I think I'd be okay with that. I mean, those are the prices I'm used to paying, and it's just paying these like higher prices, like $70, $80. To me, I just think that's way too much, and I'd rather wait for a sale. But that being said, another big misconception that I talked about and highlighted in my first video is the idea of the game key cards. Now, this is something, the concept of the game key cards has also been clarified and fleshed out and, you know, revealed to be what it really is. And so essentially what it is it's going to be a cartridge that will be empty. There won't be any game data on there, but you put it in the Switch 2 and it will allow you to download the full game. But you have to have the cartridge inside to play it as a key. It's similar to what I talked about in terms of discs on the PlayStation and Xbox, where you get a disc that only has like maybe half the game on it and you have to download the rest of it. Or maybe the disc has the full game, but you have to download like a 50 gig update to be able to actually play it properly. Similar idea to that, but it's more so just, you know, it's a key, right? I don't really like that idea. I think it's still cooler to have the full game on the cartridge, you know, like actually have it on the cartridge to be able to play it, you know, offline, or like if you don't have access to the digital game anymore. However, I still think I guess it's cool that they're doing like something physical for those kind of games, because once I got into collecting Nintendo games, there's a lot of games I wanted to buy on the Switch that are actually pretty cheap and affordable, but all it is just the plastic case with a download code inside. And to me, that's just not worth buying, even at like $15 or $20. I don't want to buy just a case with a download code, but if it's just a case with like a game key card, like this cartridge that can allow you to download the game, I think that's better. It's still something physical, and I was watching a video. A guy was saying that, you know, at the very least, it's something that you can sell later down the line. If you wanted to share the game, if you wanted to, you know, sell it off, it's still a physical item there rather than a download code, which is a one-time use thing, and that's about it. So, yeah, having the game key card, definitely better than at least having a download code. Although I do think it's ridiculous when you see smaller games like Bravely Default, the remake, I mentioned this, that they're doing a game key card, and that's a very small game. Street Fighter 6 is doing a game key card. Street Fighter 6 is a big game, but it's a lot smaller than Cyberpunk, and Cyberpunk is going to be all on the cartridge, so it doesn't make sense to me why a game like Street Fighter 6 wouldn't just go all in on the cartridge. Maybe it's cheaper for the company, for the developer, if they decide, yeah, we're going to go ahead and port it over on a game key card. It's probably a lot cheaper. Like, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, for example, I was ordering business cards for my wife because she does like handmade art, which is really cool. I'll go ahead and show like some of her work here. It's actually really cool stuff she makes. She uses a resin. But that's besides the point right now. What I'm saying is I was buying her some business cards, and they have like all these different tiers of like the kinds of business cards you can get, like the material that the card is made of, the shape, the even the finish, like is it matte, is it glossy, all that kind of stuff. And of course, the basic business card is like the cheapest one they have, and the more fancier the material gets, the more fancier it looks, the more expensive it is. And I guess maybe that's how they're doing it, is that they're offering these game companies a tiered system of how to port their game onto the Nintendo Switch 2, of like, would you want to do maybe digital only? Do you want a physical copy, but it's just a game key card for this amount? Or do you want to pay a little more and have like maybe half of the game on the cartridge? Or do you want to pay the most amount and have like an unlimited amount of gigabytes available and put your whole game on the cartridge? Yeah, I mean, I guess as a developer, it's enticing to go for the cheaper option, but I just think that if you have a game that you're proud of, that you enjoy, and a lot of people are gonna like it, I just think it makes more sense, to do like what CD Projekt Red did with The Witcher 3 back on the regular Switch, and Cyberpunk now on the Switch 2, putting it all on the cartridge, maybe paying a little bit extra, but hey, it will sell, and it's worth it for your game, because it just it's also the longevity piece, right? It's silly to think about, but if you put the whole game on the cartridge, like, that game will exist on that cartridge for eternity, like until the cartridge literally like disintegrates into dust because of time, which I guess is a possibility over millions of years, right? But the idea that you could have it set on this cartridge forever, and somebody can plug this in 100 years down the line into their Switch 2 and be able to play the full Cyberpunk experience on a cartridge, I think that's just really cool. And it's silly to think about it that way, but that's how I see it. It's the longevity piece. I don't know, but anyways, that being said, I am still very excited for this console. It's definitely something that I want to get, and I do feel a little better in terms of the pricing of the games, even though I do think it's still expensive to price it at $80. I don't think Nintendo will lose money if they priced it at $70, or even if they priced it at $60. I really don't think they'll lose money on it. It's just a matter of like, well, we can price it at this price point, so let's just go ahead and do that, and we'll make it sound good as to why we did that. It is what it is. Corporate greed is corporate greed, but it's not all bad. It's just, to me, the biggest concern is how much is this console actually going to cost with the whole tariff situation? Is it still going to be $450, or is it going to go up to $600? That, I think, is going to be a decisive factor in how successful the Switch 2 launch is, especially here in the United States. Are people going to actually buy it at a higher price point? Let me know in the comments below if you saw the Nintendo Switch 2 for $600, right? If they say it's going to be $600, are you going to buy it at $600? Are you going to wait for it to go down in price, or are you just going to completely ignore it? I think there's a lot of people that might actually decide to ignore it, at least until they can get it for $450, or maybe at least $500. But only time will tell. We don't know how much it's going to be. Maybe they stick at the $450 price point, and try to be the hero and be like, you know what, tariffs or no tariffs, we priced it at $450. We're gonna keep it at $450. Let's sell these consoles. People are already upset about the games. I think maybe Nintendo can at least redeem a little bit in this situation if they decided to keep the price point at $450 and did not increase it to $600, which is something they could totally do if they wanted to. But what would that show in terms of, I mean, and it's not fair to say greed, right? Because if they're getting, you know, massive tariffs imposed on them, I mean, they have to make a profit, right? But how cool would it be if they decided to just keep it the same price point and, you know, said, screw the tariffs, we're just gonna keep the same price, it's what we announced, but still buy our games for $80. I don't know, it's wild. But anyways, this was LittleMoeGaming at lunch. I'm gonna go ahead and head back to work. It took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I just had a lot I wanted to say. Look out for my new video coming soon. I'm planning on working on it this weekend. Basically just talking a lot about the Nintendo Switch and my memories and experiences with it, the games that I played and what I enjoyed. Having a lot of fun making that video, and I love making these little LMG at lunch videos because it gives me a way to just talk about video games for 15 to 20 to 30 minutes, you know, without anyone judging me. Just, you know, just sitting here in my car talking about video games out loud rather than, like, you know, sitting at work and talking about video games out loud to somebody who doesn't care about video games, you know? So if you do watch these videos and you do enjoy it, give a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment below, let me know how you feel about the Switch 2. Love you for watching, and as always, take care.
Why were they trying to kill you?
I had proof that our Grandmaster's Denyek had betrayed the Order and was conspiring.